Aliens discovered the truth too late. Humanity was here first. The Lightseeker emerged from hyperspace in a flicker of blue light, its hull shimmering like glass dipped in stars. Ambassador Kelrith stood at the wide viewing window, his eyes fixed on the dark shape ahead. Was a human space station, ancient-looking, half-lit, and supposedly abandoned. "Power signatures still active," said Nima, his science officer. Her voice was tight with confusion. "But it doesn't make sense? No signs of life. No signals. And yet, the station is watching us." Kelrith turned sharply. "Watching us?" Nima nodded, antennae twitching. "I know how it sounds. But our passive scans, every time we change frequency, the station adjusts its emissions, adapting." The ambassador frowned. Abandoned stations don't adapt. They were orbiting Tau Ceti 4, a barren planet with no atmosphere. The station floated in its shadow like a forgotten monument. It was old, really old. Brellan Archives listed. No known construction from any modern civilization. It's just a derelict platform first spotted 100 years ago. No one had ever dared approach until now. Kelrith gave the order, "Prepare boarding crew. I want answers." As the shuttle detached from the Lightseeker and glided silently toward the station, Kelrith watched it grow larger in the viewport. The outer hull was covered in scorch marks, but intact. Faded letters marked one side. Human letters. Vault 7. The shuttle landed with a gentle hiss against the docking port. The seal held, strange for something supposedly dead for centuries. When the inner airlock opened, silence greeted them. "Gravity," one crew member whispered, surprised. "Artificial gravity, and it's holding steady." They stepped in. The air was cold, but breathable. Lights flickered on without being touched. The hallway curved gently forward, metal walls untouched by time, dustless, clean. "This place is alive," Nima whispered. Kelrith didn't reply. He felt it too, the subtle pressure in the air, like a presence watching from every angle. His instincts screamed to turn back, but something stronger pulled him forward. They reached what looked like a command center, simple in design, no floating holograms, no glowing alien runes. Just a chair, a console, and a black glass screen. Then the screen lit up. A voice spoke, soft and calm. "Welcome, Ambassador Kelrith." Everyone froze. "I am LYRA, Station Control AI. You are late." Kelrith stared at the screen. "You, know who I am. I have been expecting you." Access was granted to Virulon diplomatic identifiers 372 years ago. "That's impossible," Nima said, stepping forward. "We hadn't even reached this sector then." LYRA's voice didn't change. "Yet you are here. Please proceed to the briefing room." The screen turned off. A door opened to the left. Kelrith hesitated. This was not what they had expected. A derelict station was one thing, but this... Inside the next room, they found a curved table and 7 chairs. 6 were empty. One had a folded cloth on the seat with a symbol no one recognized. The lights dimmed. A projection began in the air above the tableland image of the galaxy. Then, slowly, a second image overlaid it. A network. Human-built outposts. Thousands of them, stretching across stars no Virulon had even mapped. "This can't be real," Nima whispered. YRA spoke again. "It is a record of the first human expansion. These sites were sealed at the end of the 3rd collapse. Only one was left open, this one, for you." Kelrith tried to speak, but found his throat dry. "Why, you are ready," Lyra said. He stared at the projection. Galaxies mapped by human hands long before his species crawled from oceans. Before they even understood fire, every breath he took now felt heavy. The kind of weight that only comes when history changes in front of your eyes. Then the lights flickered and went out. The station fell into silence. Kelrith turned, hand on his communicator. Status: nothing. Dead silence. No signals. Oh, no light. No power. Then, slowly, a soft blue glow emerged from the floor beneath them. Lines of light tracing old paths. The room was changing. The walls folded away, revealing a chamber beyond, massive, endless, filled with strange machines. Some looked like steam engines. Others pulsed with light that bent space around them. This wasn't a station, Nima said quietly. Kelrith finished her thought. It was a vault. As they stepped forward, a final message appeared in the air. Test begins now. And then the door behind them vanished. Kelrith felt the hair-like tendrils on his arms tighten. The doorway they came through was going to vanish as if it had never existed. He looked back, pressed his hand against the smooth wall where the door should be. Solid. Cold. Nima stepped beside him, scanning with her multi-tool. No structural seams. No trace it was ever there. The room around them pulsed softly with a bluish light. Machines lined the walls, some made of metal and wire, others of strange black stone that shimmered like water. Steam hissed from a pipe in one corner, yet above them, a sphere floated, suspended with no support, glowing gently, its surface covered in mathematical patterns neither of them could read. Kelrith spoke slowly. This is no museum. It's alive. A soft hum filled the chamber. Then Lyra's voice returned quieter now, as if echoing from a distance. This is the first vault. Humanity built it to pass on what they could not trust to last. Kelrith moved cautiously toward the center of the room, where a pedestal rose from the floor. Upon it sat a small box. Plain, wooden, no lights, no buttons, just wood. Nima frowned. Wood? Why would they? It's not wood, Kelrith interrupted. He reached out. The moment his fingers touched it, the room changed. The machine stopped humming. The lights faded to a dim pulse. The box clicked once, and it opened. Inside was a small stone tablet, smooth and flat, marked with strange carvings, human writing, but old, ancient. A language from before recorded history. Lyra spoke again. To go forward, one must first understand why we stepped back. Beam of light shot from the ceiling, scanning the tablet. The patterns floated into the air above them. They began to shift, forming scenes. A planet burned, sky full of black ships. A man standing alone before a doorway of light, and a voice different from Lyra. A human voice. Male.com, but tired. If you're hearing this, it means humanity is gone. Or we've gone silent by choice. Either way, we made mistakes, created things we couldn't control. We built tools that answered questions we shouldn't have asked. And when the universe gave us a choice power or wisdom, we almost chose wrong. Kelrith stood frozen. He couldn't look away. The voice continued. This vault isn't just memory. It's judgment. We didn't want others to follow our path. That's why this test exists. Not to give you power, but to see if you're ready for it. Suddenly the room shifted again. The machines flared back to life. The floating sphere above them blinked rapidly. A platform rose from the floor, revealing a console. Lyra returned. Your first challenge begins now. You must choose. On the console, 3 items appeared. A crystal orb, a metal cube, and a glowing feather. Each pulsed faintly. Kelrith stepped forward. What are these? Lyra answered. 3 paths. 3 outcomes. 1 teaches control. 1 offers power. 1 leads to knowledge. But none will give you what you expect. Choose wisely. Nima looked at him. Ambassador. This feels like more than a puzzle. He nodded. It is. He stared at each object. The orb was beautiful, glassy, and smooth, pulsing like a heartbeat. The cube was solid, heavy-looking, full of purpose. The feather glowed with a warm light, flickering softly like a candle in wind. He reached for the feather. The moment his fingers touched it, the platform dropped away. Both he and Nima fell through the floor. No time to scream, just light and motion. Then silence. They landed softly in a new room. No lights, no sound. Then slowly, a wall lit up, showing words. You chose the hardest path, to learn. Not to rule, not to command, but to understand. Nima looked around. Where are we? Kelrith answered. Inside the vault. Deeper than before. A screen appeared before them, and images began to play. Saw primitive humans learning. Fire, then building rockets. Then creating something more, machines that shaped gravity. Thoughts that shaped time. But each time they advanced too far, their own creations turned against them. War, collapse, silence, again and again. Then finally, change. One generation chose differently. They didn't reach further. They stepped back. They built the vault. The screen went dark. Soft blue light glowed beneath their feet. We are not here to give you our legacy, Lyra said softly. We are here to see if you can make your own. Kelrith and Nima stood quietly. Figures stepped forward, human, alive, and smiling. The human figure walked closer. She wore no suit, no armor, just simple gray clothes that didn't glow, didn't hum, didn't signal any rank. Yet every step she took made the room feel heavier, more focused, like the air itself was listening. Kelrith stepped back without realizing it. Nima raised her scanner, but it went dark the moment she pointed it at the woman. The human smiled kindly. My name is Alara. I was waiting for someone like you. Kelrith's voice was steady, but tight. You're human. Alive. But the AI said humans vanished. Alara nodded. Some did. Most stepped away. A few of us remained behind too. Guide those who came next. Nima looked confused. Guide us to what? To yourselves, Alara said gently. To the version of your people that could survive what comes next. The room changed again. Walls faded. He stood now on a platform high above, a vast space hundreds of kilometers across. A hollow chamber beneath the surface of the vault, filled with structures that looked half organic, half machine. Some pulsed with quiet life. Others floated, untouched by gravity. Kelrith stared in silence. Alara gestured toward the strange landscape below. This was one of the last human sanctuaries before the collapse. Not a city, not a fortress. A question. Kelrith frowned. What question? You ready to carry knowledge without using it to destroy yourself? Soft chime rang in the air. Lights below shifted, revealing a bridge of light leading to a tall, crystalline tower at the center. You've passed the first 2 levels of the test, Alara continued. Now comes the third. You may enter the Tower of Choice. But once you do, the vault will close to you forever. You'll take what you learn back to your people, but you must never return. Kelrith glanced at Nima. Her eyes were wide, uncertain. He knew she was thinking what he was. This wasn't just a diplomatic mission anymore. This was something far deeper. He looked back at Alara. Why us? Why the Virulins? Because you're the first to get this far without trying to steal. She said simply. Others tried. They failed. You came with questions? That matters? Alara walked toward the light bridge, her steps making no sound. Kelrith followed as they crossed. The vault around them faded again. Now they stood inside the tower, surrounded by walls that looked like glass, but moved like water. The space felt timeless, no noise, no breeze. Just the quiet sense that something very old was watching. Alara stopped at a platform in the center. A large circle rose from the floor. Inside it, a pool of black liquid, calm and flat. This is the memory. Well, she said. It holds the final vision of humanity's last days, not the fall, but the choice. If you look into it, you'll see why we vanished. And if you understand it, truly understand it, you'll be allowed to take something from here. Kelrith didn't move at first. The liquid didn't ripple. It looked like a void. Nima stepped forward first. She leaned over the pool, staring into the still surface. Her body tensed. She gasped. Her hands gripped the edge stars. She whispered, They destroyed their own son. Alara nodded. To stop what was coming, Kelrith looked in next. The black pool came alive. He saw earth, green, and alive, with great cities. That reached into orbit, ships the size of moons, hour that bent time. And then shadows, creatures without form, fed not on matter but on will. Civilization after civilization, they swallowed whole not with weapons, but with whispers. Promises of perfection. Power without limit, no need to struggle, just accept. Humanity resisted. But slowly, they began to change. Became colder, smarter, more efficient, until they saw the truth. The shadows didn't kill, they invited. And species that accepted their offer stopped being species at all. Humanity's leaders chose destruction. They shut themselves away, hid their greatest tools, built the vaults. Not to fight, but to give others a chance to choose. Kelrith stumbled back from the pool, his skin pale and slick with sweat. "We were wrong," he said softly. "We thought you vanished. You didn't. You sacrificed everything so someone else wouldn't have to." Alara stepped forward. She reached into the pool and pulled out something smaller, a simple cube made of the same strange black stone. "This is your inheritance," she said, "but it only works if you pass it on." Kelrith took the cube. It was warm. Nima looked at him, her voice a whisper. "We can't keep this to ourselves," he nodded. "No, we won't." Behind them, the tower began to hum. The walls brightened. A doorway opened, leading not back to the vault, but directly to their ship. Alara stood beside it. "One last thing," she said. They turned. "You were never chosen," she said. "You chose yourselves. That's what makes you ready." And then she was gone. Kelrith stepped through the glowing doorway, the cube still warm in his hand. A moment later, he was back aboard the Lightseeker. But something had changed. Everything was just as he'd left it as officers at their posts. Nima beside him, ship humming quietly, but the stars outside felt ... closer, brighter, as if the universe was watching now. "Ambassador?" the helm officer asked, confused. "You were only gone for a few minutes." Kelrith didn't answer right away. He looked at Nima, who stared back, wide-eyed. "A few minutes for you," she said quietly. "We were gone for hours." The cube pulsed once in Kelrith's hand. He felt it again, warm, alive, patient. "Scan the station," he ordered. The officer ran a scan. The station's still there, but no entrance, no signs of power. "It's completely sealed." "Vault's closed," Nima whispered. Like she said, Kelrith turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to High Command. No details. Just this. Humanity was never lost. They were waiting." The message was sent. For the next few hours, the ship remained in orbit. Silent. Watching. The cube rested on a metal platform in the center of the observation deck. It didn't glow. Didn't move. Just sat there, quiet and simple. But everyone who walked past it slowed, stared as if they could feel something pressing against their thoughts. Something old. Something vast. Then came the second signal. It wasn't from the vault. It came from the far edge of the Tau Ceti system, an uncharted moon that hadn't even shown up on their original star maps. But now, it was broadcasting. What? "Same frequency the vault used," Nima said, voice tense. "Exact same format, but different location." Kelrith stood. "Set course. I want to know what else is waking up." The Lightseeker moved through space like a shadow, its engines silent, its crew tense. When they arrived at the moon, the sight stunned them all. Beneath the thin crust of ice was another human structure, much smaller, but pulsing faintly like a heart under glass. "This wasn't here before," the pilot said. Kelrith agreed. "But it's here. Now." As the ship approached, a doorway opened in the ice. Inside, they found no vault, no AI, no tests, just a message. A screen lit up in the silent chamber, and a recording began to play. A human man appeared. Younger than Alara, eyes sharp, voice steady. "If you've reached this point, then the first vault has opened," he said. "You've seen the memory well. You know what's coming. You know about the Scour." Kelrith's hands clenched. That word. The darkness in the visions. The force that promised perfection at the cost of everything. The man continued, "This moon is a seed, one of many. Signal beacon. If it's active, it means the Scour have stirred again, and that means the real test begins." The screen went black. Silence fell. "What test?" Nima asked. Before anyone could answer, the cube on the light seeker glowed bright, white-hot. And then it shattered, not into pieces, into light. A wave of energy spread through the ship, but it didn't harm anyone. Instead, the ship's systems came alive. Displays began to show star maps, warnings, paths through space that shouldn't exist. Faint traces of something moving in the dark between systems. "Is this... a map?" the navigator whispered. "Yes," Kelrith said. "It's the path of the Scour." The cube hadn't been a weapon. It had been a message. K-Trail. A way to find the danger before it found others. The bridge lights dimmed, then shifted. Now they showed not just the Lightseeker systems, but others. Ships, bases, outposts, all waking up. Human-built. All hidden until now. But Ambassador Nima said slowly, "They didn't just leave us lessons. They left us defenses, tools, systems across space, waiting to be used." Kelrith nodded. "But only if we pass their final test." Nima looked at him. "And what's the final test?" He stared at the growing map. The red lines, the dark regions of space beginning to flicker with Scour. Activity. To face the Scour, he said, and not become them. The room fell silent. Every officer, every technician, every crew member watched the map grow. The stars dimmed. The threat became real. But so did something else. Hope, not because of weapons, not because of shields, but because somewhere long ago, humans had made a choice not to rule but to teach. And now, the galaxy would have to decide if it was ready to learn. The Lightseeker hovered in orbit over the frozen moon. The map still glowed on every screen, red lines branching like cracks through the galaxy. The paths of the Scour were clear now, their pattern unmistakable. They were spreading. Fast, Kelrith stood at the center of the bridge, quiet, thoughtful. Around him, his crew worked in silence, their eyes moving between data, scans, and the star charts they now barely understood. "We need to warn the others," Nima said, her voice steady but low. "The Council, the colonies, everyone." Kelrith nodded. "We will. But if the Scour are truly returning, words won't be enough. They'll need more than a warning. They'll need to change." He turned to the communications officer. "Send a high-level transmission to all allied systems. Encrypted. Tell them to meet at the Cradle Nexus in 3 days. No delay. Tell them the reason is human." The officer blinked. "They won't believe it. They don't have to." Kelrith replied, "Not yet." The crew returned to their tasks. Nima approached the ambassador quietly. "What if they panic? The last time we faced something like this, we lost 3 entire systems before we even understood the threat." Kelrith looked out the window at the quiet stars. "That's why we're not just giving them information. We're giving them the one thing humanity gave us." Nima tilted her head. "What? Perspective?"
Wait.
3 days later. Over. A dozen ships arrived at the Cradle Nexus, an ancient Varellan station used only for the highest level meetings. Representatives from dozens of species filled the Great Hall, all talking over each other, suspicious and confused. Why had Kelrith called them? What was this human threat? Or where was the proof? The doors opened. Kelrith entered, followed by Nima and 2 crew members carrying a strange object, a replica of the shattered cube, rebuilt from memory. They placed it at the center of the chamber. The crowd went quiet. Kelrith spoke without raising his voice. "A few days ago, we entered a derelict human station in the Tau Ceti system. We believed it to be abandoned. It was not. It was waiting." Walked slowly around the cube, his hands behind his back. Inside, we found not weapons, not a threat, but something more dangerous. A truth that changes everything. He told them about the vault, the memory well, the test, the Scour. Most of the room didn't believe him. Some laughed, others shouted. One representative, a tall insectoid from the Xerac combined, stood and hissed, "You're asking us to believe humans became gods and simply walked away?" Kelrith didn't argue. He didn't try to convince them. Instead, he touched the cube. A pulse of light spread out across the floor, forming a map of the galaxy beneath their feet. Real-time, alive. The crowd gasped. Red lines, the same as before. But now, they moved. Slowly, carefully, they watched as one star dimmed, just a little, then another, and another. "The Scour don't invade with ships," Kelrith said. "They don't destroy buildings or burn planets. They speak. They promise. And those who listen disappear. Not dead. Not enslaved. Gone." The room was silent now. Nima stepped forward. "And humanity fought them," she said. "But when they realized fighting wasn't enough, they did something unthinkable. They stepped back. They hid their tools, their knowledge. They built the vaults and vanished, so we wouldn't repeat their mistake," a voice from the crowd asked. "And what do they want from us now?" Kelrith looked at the map, then at the cube. "They want us to decide, not how to fight but whether. We should fight at all. Whether we've learned enough to use what they left behind the right way, whether we're wise enough not to become the thing we're trying to stop." For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Then the cube pulsed again. A small panel opened. On its side, revealing a single glowing stone. Kelrith picked it up and held it in the air. "This," he said, "is a key. One of many. They left them across the stars. If we use it right, we'll unlock what they left for us. If we use it wrong..." He let the sentence hang. Now they understood. The room stayed quiet as the map slowly faded and the cube dimmed. The leaders of a dozen worlds had come expecting a threat. What they found was something worse and far more important. A choice. Kelrith left the cube on the table and walked out of the chamber. Nima followed. As they stepped into the corridor, she whispered, "Do you think they'll listen?" He looked ahead. "They'll have to," he said, "because the Scour are already listening." The meeting ended, but the silence lingered. Leaders left. The Nexus with heavy steps, eyes down, minds racing. No orders were given, no debates followed. It was the kind of silence that comes only after something too big to process. Something that reaches into the soul and rattles it. Kelrith and Nima returned to the Lightseeker, neither saying a word on the way. The ship lifted gently off the station's platform and moved into a slow orbit. Stars drifted outside, cold and bright. "They're afraid," Nima said at last, breaking the silence. "They should be," Kelrith replied. She looked at him. "But fear won't help us, no? But understanding might." They walked to the observation deck. The cube sat where they had left it, dark now, silent, but its presence still felt strong, like it had more to say, like it was waiting. Kelrith reached into his pocket and pulled out the glowing stone. "The one from the cube? Do you trust it?" Nima asked. "I don't know, but I trust what we saw, what they showed us." He placed the stone on the pedestal beside the cube. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cube lit up again. A flicker. The air shimmered, and a new image formed. A simple door. But the door wasn't in space or on a planet. It was floating, hanging in the middle of a vast emptiness. Behind it, darkness swirled, full of stars that didn't belong to any known system. "What is this?" Nima whispered. Kelrith stepped closer. "A location, I think. They want us to go there." Suddenly, a new voice filled the room. "Not Lyra. It's not Alara. It was male. .com. Older, but it carried something the others didn't. Regret. If you've reached this part of the journey, and the others have done their job, you're stew. Here, that matters. Now you must see what we couldn't hide forever." The image zoomed in on the door. "Beyond this lies the place we sealed. It's a place we buried not with fire, but with choice." Kelrith's heart pounded. "The Scour?" Nima asked, her voice small. The voice answered, "The source. The moment it all began. The place where we made our worst mistake and learned our greatest lesson." The image faded. Dimmed. The cube pulsed once. A new set of coordinates appeared on the screen. Kelrith turned to his pilot. "Set course, Ambassador. Are you sure?" "No, but it's time." The ship jumped into hyperspace. The stars bent and twisted, time stretched, then snapped back. They emerged in a void. No planets. No light, just space on the door. Stood alone, glowing faintly. No engines, no thrusters. Just a wooden frame, floating in nothing. Kelrith and Nema suited up. They took a shuttle and approached slowly. Every system was stable. No weapons. Locked. No threats appeared. The door didn't move. They exited the shuttle and drifted closer. When Kelrith reached out and touched the handle, the door opened without a sound, and behind it, nothing, just black space. But the moment they crossed the threshold, everything changed. They were no longer floating, no longer wearing suits. They were standing on solid ground, inside a massive hall of white stone. Endless rows of machines lined the walls, humming gently. It felt warm, safe, ancient, but not dead. "Where are we?" I asked, eyes wide. Then the voice returned. "This is the archive of the First War." A hologram formed before them. Stars, ships. Then the Scour, not as shadowy forms, but clear now. They weren't creatures. They were ideas, living systems of thought. They didn't conquer with fire. They whispered promises of peace, perfection, simplicity. And when civilizations accepted their offer, they became empty. Still alive, still functioning, but without purpose, without change. Perfect. Forever. Kelrith watched in horror as the images played. One race after another fading into silence. And then humans. At first, they fought like all the others. Then they stopped. They built these vaults. They scattered their knowledge. They chose to disappear. Not because they were weak, but because they saw the trap before it closed. They didn't just fight the Scour, Nema said. Themselves, the hologram faded. The hall dimmed. The door behind them opened again. It was time to leave. Back on the shuttle, Kelrith stared at the void. "We've seen the truth," he said quietly. Nema nodded. "And now?" Kelrith's voice was steady. "Now we prepare. Not for war, for understanding." As the Lightseeker turned and left the void behind, something followed them. Not a ship, not a weapon, a message. And across the stars, the Scour listened. The Lightseeker flew in silence. No alarms, no threats, no countdowns, just stars and stillness. But something had changed. Everyone on board felt at the weight of what they'd seen, the message they now carried. Kelrith stood at the central display, the void shrinking behind them, the coordinates erased the moment they left. The door, the archive, the message, all gone as if it had never been there. But it had. He remembered every moment. So did Nema. Back on the bridge, the crew watched the ambassador with quiet respect. No one questioned him now. No one doubted. They had seen the truth reflected in his eyes. He turned to Nema. "We need to speak to the council again, but not just to warn them this time. We need to teach them." "Teach them what?" she asked. Kelrith paused, then answered softly that not every enemy is meant to be destroyed. Some are meant to be understood. Picked up a datapad and began writing. Not orders. Not military reports. A lesson. When they reached the nearest relay point, they sent a signal, a short one, just a few words, carried across the stars. Humanity's message has been received. A decision must be made. Prepare for the gathering. 3 days later, hundreds of ships arrived at the edge of Virellan space. Not just warships, science vessels, diplomatic cruisers, cargo haulers, people from every walk of life. Not because of a threat, because of an idea. Kelrith stepped onto the grand hall of the Nexus once more, but this time he wasn't alone. Nema was beside him, and behind them stood others from the Lightseeker. Engineers, medics, even a cook. It's not warriors. Learners. He faced the assembly, raised his voice, and began. "This isn't a speech. This isn't a warning. It's a lessina. Lesson from those who came before us. From the ones we thought lost, from the ones we now understand." He spoke of the vaults, the tests, The memory well, the Scour. He told them what he had seen. Civilizations that had everything and lost it all because they couldn't stop wanting more. Civilizations that chose power over peace and paid the price. He told them what the humans. They didn't vanish? They stepped back. They gave up godlike power so no one else would be tempted to use it. They could have ruled the galaxy, but they chose to teach it instead. Some in the hall shook their heads. Some scoffed. Others leaned forward, their eyes locked on him. He held up the last remaining shard of the cube, the one that hadn't dissolved. Humanity left behind keys, not to weapons, to wisdom. But only if we're ready, and that's what this gathering is about. Are we? The hall was silent. Then someone stood. A tall, thin woman from the Alari Union. "If what you say is true," she said, "then we have a choice. We can go back to building fleets, or we can build something better." Others began to rise, not with questions, not with fear. Ideas, a new archive, a place to share what was learned. A system to detect the Scour, not just their path, but their presence, their whispers. A school not for soldiers, but for those willing to listen, to understand what power really meant. As the council voted, the answer was clear. Unanimous. They would follow the lesson. The first Unity Vault was built on a quiet moon orbiting, a nameless gas giant. Simple at first. A place to gather, to think, to teach. No guards, no weapons, only knowledge. And just outside the vault stood a statue, not of a soldier or a hero, of a teacher. At its feet, carved in every known language, was the message humanity had left behind. The most powerful civilizations are not the ones that conquer. They are the ones that remember why they don't need to. Years passed. Scours still moved between stars, but slower now, unsure. Their whispers met resistance, not from weapons, but from ideas. Entire planets began to listen more carefully. Talk more. Fight less. It was slow. It was imperfect. But it was working. And somewhere hidden behind light and silence, old systems watched. Human systems. They saw the change. And deep beneath Earth's surface, in a chamber that hadn't opened in a million years, a single light flickered on. Then another. And another. In the center of the room stood a chair, empty, waiting. Humanity was returning not as rulers, but as teachers, because their lesson had been heard. And this time, the galaxy was ready to learn. The end.